Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ESL Hearthstone Legendary Series. Of course, Osmo Kitty here, joined by Monk once again. Pretty interesting to hear his thoughts after his performance in the first season of the Legendary Series.
Yeah, definitely a lot of regrets there, and he's going to be hoping to get another chance at the second season of ESL Legendary Series. Why don't we take a look at the format of the tournament?
Yeah, it's, of course, this season we've moved to a bi-monthly system. So each week there's a Challenger Cup. The following week there's a Legendary Series match day. And the winner of each Legendary Series match day moves on to that Legendary Series Season 2 LAN Finals on June 5th, 6th, and 7th. It is a 16-player tournament, so 4 players, those winners from each week. 4 players from that redemption in May, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And then, of course, 8 players from the Last Chance Open on May 23rd and 24th.
Yeah, of course, we do have to tell you that the Last Chance Open will actually only be open to North American players. Now, that's not because we hate European players, because we hate Asian players. It's actually because the very next week, the LAN finals will be happening, and it's going to be very difficult for players outside of the United States, outside of Canada, to get visas and to get flights ready for that final. So if you're from Europe or if you're from Asia, the last chance you'll get to qualify for the ESL Legendary Series Season 2 will actually be Challenger Cup number 4 on May 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, so it is first come, first serve for that Challenger tournament. So you can head on over to legendaryseries.com for details on how to enter that tournament. And there are BlizzCon points on the line for all of our Challenger Cups as well. So a little bit of a bonus for competing in that. There's a lot of money on the line and a lot of really great fun on the line as well. And of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsors. Plantronics and Gigabyte have joined us for the Legendary Series Season 2 to help us make all of this possible. So if you're looking to maybe get like a Plantronics rig headset, which is a headset that a lot of pros use. You can see those a lot of times in LAN tournaments, the headsets that they use when they're at those computers, and they're pretty good. So if you're looking to upgrade some of your computer hardware as well, make sure you check out those guys. Support the Legendary Series and support the Hearthstone esports scene. You can also make sure you tweet at us throughout the day, throughout the weekend. You can use the hashtag HLS. Make sure you follow us at ESL Hearthstone. Tell us your predictions. Tell us what you think of the matches. What you think of these players that are maybe more unknown, like Kabi taking 3-0 victory over Osaka. We'll be checking those tweets periodically throughout the day and responding to those. And one last reminder as well before we jump into the next match, we are doing a raffle, a giveaway. Head on over to esl.gg/legendarywk3. We're giving away some packs, Monk.
I love them packs.
I love packs too.
You know, if you, Chalky, he opened up 5 packs on stream the other day. He got a Golden Jiraxis Prophet Villain, so if you're Chalky, you might as well go for it again. Or if you think you have Chalky's luck.
Opening packs is one thing that Chalky is not second place in.
True.
And we'll see if he's not second place in today. But we are moments away from jumping into our next match. It is going to be between Leadpaint and Team Liquid's Savjz. Now, Leadpaint is part of the team that's managed by Caseytron called the Grand National Champions.
I don't really know what to think about that.
Well, I mean, it's working out for him because Leadpaint is the only player so far in Season 2 of the Legendary Series to qualify through the open bracket twice. Now, not only does it mean that he has 2 chances to win each week, he also gets seeded into that redemption tournament at the end of the season twice. So he'll get seeded into 2 different brackets to be rewarded for making it through that open qualifier twice. And
that's only if he doesn't take this whole week, right?
Exactly, yeah. That's only if he doesn't win each week. So GNC, of course, Grand National Champions, not the health and supplement store.
Yeah, you cannot buy vitamins at Leadpaint's team.
No, can't buy Leadpaint either.
Yeah, it's true. Kind of misleading, his entire name and his entire team.
Yeah, his name used to be Frank in a Box.
Okay.
So if you've played against him in those Challenger Cups, I believe that's still his like ESL tag. It's what he uses in the actual tournament. So that might be a name you know him more by. He's currently sitting, I believe, at rank 45 on the North American Legend ladder.
Do you know if his name is actually Frank?
I think it's Frank.
Okay. So maybe his room is his box.
Wow.
Or maybe his mind is his box.
Wow, he's such a philosopher.
He's trapped inside his own mind. Now, we do have to talk about Liquid Savjz. Now, he did very well last week, or last season rather, and he's looking to make a comeback. And wow, it's going to be Paladin here. I thought it was going to be kind of the Dragon Paladin, but of course it's Savjz's signature. He likes to call it the Ebola Paladin.
Indeed, indeed. Which, it's very tough to play against.
Yeah, especially if you don't have experience against this deck. But if Leadpaint did his research, he should know what's up. The issue I have sometimes with this deck is that if it goes against other aggressive decks, the aggressive decks can sometimes control their hand in order for Divine Favor to not get that much value.
Yeah, especially against Zoo. A lot of times they're emptying their hand, and Zoo has been known to have quite favorable matchups against decks that are similar to it. I think this Paladin deck is a little bit faster than decks that you would traditionally think Zoo is good against, like Mech Mage. But we'll definitely have to see. I can say that I don't have much experience either playing or watching this particular matchup.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunately, kind of a slow start for Leadpaint. He had to play the Abusive Sergeant on turn 1.
And that's a really great answer.
Yeah, and now he pretty much has everything he needs. He gets board control. Now, all he really needs after this is Wisps and Hobgoblins, because those are in this deck.
Yeah. Wow, Boardwalker is actually a pretty huge draw, because a lot of times against really fast decks like this Eboladin or the Base Hunter, it trades 2 for 1, which for a 1-drop to trade 2 for 1, pretty dang good.
Yeah, good indeed. We can see Savjz, that was a really good drop from Savjz. He might have wanted something a little like a 3-drop perhaps. Perhaps a Cog Hammer, which is also in this deck. But I think this is okay. Otherwise, he would have had to use Divine Favor.
Yeah.
But now, even though Leadpaint, he had a slow start, this is pretty much exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
He's kind of stabilized, and against even a more aggressive deck than Zoo, I think he's going to be pretty happy now.
And he's going to be able to deal with it quite well. Now, Jeeves in this matchup can sometimes work against you. Just because Zulocks can empty their hands enough to be able to benefit from the 3-card draw that Jeeves is going to be able to use. I'm sure he knows that it'll benefit Savjz more, so probably would end up clearing it. Oh, there's the Cog Hammer.
Yeah, he definitely wanted that a few turns earlier. It's kind of like a Stormforged Axe, right? And that used to be one of the best cards against Zoo.
Yep.
So Savjz, he probably actually would have preferred like a 1-drop in this scenario, able to throw that and Jeeves on the same turn. But yeah, this is going to be good as well. Cog Hammer just clearing the board entirely, and when you clear the board, that means your opponent won't be able to buff their minions with stuff like Abusive Sergeant or Defender of Argus.
And since Leadpaint is probably familiar with this deck, soon he's going to want to start emptying his hand just to play around Divine Favor. But actually, with Jeeves on the board, Divine Favor and Jeeves sort of work against each other.
It's certainly an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Now, Leadpaint will certainly be wanting to empty his hand, and the issue with that is if you draw a Doom Guard, for instance, it does help you in emptying your hand, but at the same time, it's the Wisp. But at the same time, like, you probably don't want to discard all your high-value cards, right?
Yeah.
So what can you do to empty your hand? You can actually owl the Jeeves, which is an interesting thought, I would say.
Yeah. Also, owling the Spectral Spider to be able to get to the Jeeves.
Not that much value, but sure, let's go for it.
Yeah. And now, see, Divine Favor could end up having quite a bit of an effect here. He can actually empty his hand and then use Divine Favor to draw 3 more cards. So he's actually sitting in a pretty decent spot with Blessing of Might and the...
well, he can't empty his hand fully, right?
Yeah, you can. Well, except for Divine Favor.
Okay, yeah.
He can empty his hand for Divine Favor, attack him with the Cog Hammer.
Yeah, for the next turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And not only that, it gives him board control as well. And here's another problem with such a high curving deck like Leadpaint. He's deciding to run Mal'Ganis and probably Draxus in his deck. And those are cards that are going to be very difficult to get out of his hand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially one more card for Savjz to draw guaranteed.
Yeah, and he's already been through one Void Caller, which is one of the reliable ways that you can get Mal'Ganis out of your hand. It's really tough to play Mal'Ganis just straight out of your hand, like a straight up play. Because if you especially if you don't have board control, because a lot of times it's easy to trade into. It only has 7 health.
It doesn't really do much if it's just you play Mal'Ganis on an empty board, right?
Yeah, on an empty board it just doesn't have any impact.
Does he actually play this Wisp here? I'm kind of interested there.
I don't know if there's any reason to.
Is there any reason not to, though?
Just because it's free?
Oh, you know what? He's saving the Wisp for Hobgoblin.
Yeah. The Wisp Conundrum. There's no reason to play it, and there's also no reason not to play it.
Well, this is kind of unfortunate. One of the perfect draws for Leadpaint.
Yeah.
And now the board's kind of going to be cleared. Not only that, there's only 2 cards in Leadpaint's hand.
Oh, Mukla! The ultimate combination. King Mukla plus Divine Favor.
I like it. Draw 4 cards for 3 mana.
Yeah, it's at least an Arcane Intellect, is what it is with that combination.
It's a prep sprint.
Yeah. Well, Blessing of Might, pretty helpful, but the other one's not so much this turn. Of course, that Hobgoblin can get ridiculous value. And sometimes you can make a board big enough just with Hobgoblin alone that it can swing games in your favor. Like next turn, you can Hobgoblin. Oh, wow, he's actually going to throw his
Yeah, that's interesting.
Squire out there turn now.
I think it's because it's to empty his hand further. So that on the very next turn, it's very likely for him to just like Jeeves or Hobgoblin Jeeves and then maybe play a 1-drop or a 0-drop.
It's only 1 mana though, so it seems like you'd be able to fit it in regardless, and having that 3/3 Divine Shield seems like it'd be pretty enticing.
This is a pretty interesting one. Again, as Leadpaint, you want to throw out your hand, but in order to do so, in order to fill out your curve, you might want to tap, which gives you even more cards, and if you draw something like Doomguard after tapping, that's going to be a lot of trouble.
Doomguard would actually be lethal. Wait, he'd have 7 mana? Ah. Yeah, it would be.
Okay, it'd still be lethal?
Yeah. It would be, yeah, with 1 banana and Power Overwhelming. It would be exactly 17 damage. I think this is a pretty risky move. Sort of all in, but he knows that he can't really take on both of these creatures with this board without attacking in the face, and that could leave him open to top deck for lethal.
This deck is so funny. Oh no, useless knife. So okay, so what can how can Savjz clear this board? I think he has to attack into Dr. Boom.
Yeah, he's gonna have to attack into Dr. Boom.
And then trade all his creatures in pretty much.
Yeah, he's got 14 damage total. Yeah, either way.
I don't think that changes too much.
Because either way, there's no way that he can split up his damage enough to get any points of damage to face.
Yeah, and if he does this play, if he attacks into Dr. Boom, which he has to do, then any sort of doomed card would be lethal.
Yeah. The one thing is, though, Leadpaint, I mean, he could be in trouble if he doesn't draw into it next turn.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a 3/6 Jeeves.
Yeah.
And if you watch Sea Story Cup, you know how buff Jeeves can do, right?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, I thought it was like he was actually considering not clearing this Dr. Boom, but that would be just such a not a game-winning play.
Yeah. All right, well, he's going to refill his hand as well, so...
Coghammer is actually huge.
Yeah, that's going to be big. I think Leadpaint might be on a draw to win here.
Oh, he's not going to tap for lethal?
All right,
the issue is if he doesn't tap for lethal here, I think there's really impossible for him to win because of the Coghammer that'll come down. That'll produce a taunt, and Savjz will be able to deal with the board.
Yeah.
So a Doomguard next turn won't be lethal. So I like this play of tapping. Implosion.
Implosion's actually really good because he can take a lot of damage off the board and make lots of targets for Power Overwhelming, making it so you have as many targets as possible here for Savjz to have to clear off to worry about being killed. Probably the best choice.
Yeah, I don't see a way for Savjz to win on the next turn, and again, it'll be... I'm not sure if he has Consecrates in this deck, I forget, but unfortunately that's not going to be it.
Now, this is going to be a pretty buff Haunted Creeper. That's one thing that he can say.
Yeah, so Hobgoblin, Haunted Creeper, Coghammer. Hope the Coghammer buff goes on Haunted Creeper.
Yep.
And then Leopard.
Wow. That right there, that's the spider that bit Peter
Okay,
Parker.
so he does this play. I kind of like just Coghammering before he throws down the Leopard Gnome, because that gives you more of a chance for the Coghammer buff to get on Haunted Creeper.
Yeah. Oh.
No.
Nope. One turn too late.
So, okay, so he can
clear off the Jeeves, but then he's sitting at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage on the board, so he can't tap.
So he just has to clear his entire board, or just use all his cards in his hand right now.
Yeah, unless he's confident that he can pull an owl. An owl is lethal, but other than that, he has to clear off this Jeeves, or else he's staring. He has to clear off Jeeves and not tap.
Yeah, the problem is...
Whoa!
Oh, that's risky. The problem is, these kind of decks, if you... The higher curve you go with Zoo decks, the less likely it is for you to run Owl. Most of the lower curving decks with Argent Squires, for example, I've seen them run Owl, but the decks that have Void Caller and that have Jaraxxus and Melganis, I don't see as many Owls there. And usually that's because like they're able to ignore taunts more. They can just like brute force taunts, and also they can deal with Sylvanas by implosioning them.
He's dead. There's actually 13 damage on board without Jeeves. So he just tapped into his death. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 with the Coghammer. That's it.
Sure, he sees it. Yeah, he just gives up there. And wow, that was a really exciting game.
Yeah, super.
Very different. And I'm not the biggest fan of this deck in terms of how well it does in tournaments, but it's certainly really interesting whenever Savjz plays it. Like, it kind of failed for him at Sea-Story Cup when he faced 6-0 against the Mech Shaman, because 6-0 kind of played around Divine Favor. But as you saw here, it can definitely do miracles, even without huge Hobgoblin plays in the early game.
It seems inconsistent because you're sort of relying on drawing into your ways to refill your hand with either Jeeves or Divine Favor. And then on top of that, you're also relying in, one, so your opponent can't benefit from Jeeves, and also that your opponent can't play around Divine Favor. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but you can tell when it works, it definitely works. And even without some of the combos that are possible. So we didn't even see the potential power that that deck can have.
Yeah, I also think this deck can be fairly good against Freeze Mage, because Freeze Mage is going to have like 10 cards in their hands at all times, right? And even though Freeze Mage, it generally does well against aggressive decks, the draw power from this type of Paladin can just kind of overvalue and out-tempo the Freeze Mage.
Yeah, very true. So Savjz still has Warlock and Mage left to find wins with. Leadpaint, of course, has Druid Hunter and that Zoo Warlock still left to try and throw out there. I'd assume Savjz would be bringing Freeze Mage, but you told me earlier that you think that he's packing something else.
I don't know. Savjz might have some surprises for us in this tournament. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, these guys' deck lists were submitted after the new Blackrock Mountain cards, so they are able to use the cards that were released on Thursday, like Flamewalker and Hungry Dragon.
I'm definitely excited to see some Flamewalker. Everyone, when that card was released, they were like, oh my god, that card is so good. But the problem is we haven't seen Tempo Mages being good these days. So it's kind of questionable to not run Flamewalker just because Tempo Mage as a deck is not as good.
Do you think Flamewalker makes the Tempo Mage better? Do you think it makes it good enough to be competitive?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, the main issue with Tempo Mage, I feel, these days, it's, first of all, it just doesn't have enough oomph, and Flamewalker can kind of help with that. But the other issue is I don't think it's a very good matchup against Zoo. But again, Flamewalker can help against that as well.
It's a Flame Waker? Waker, yeah.
I keep saying Flamewalker.
Our producer just Flamewalker makes sense, but
you know the actual the flavor text of the card actually says, "I'm Flame Waker, not Flamewalker."
Does it really?
Yeah, and it's like that Flame Walker is just stupid. Why would anyone call him that? I'm not trolling you. That's actually what it says.
Oh, man. Well, then we were just trolling you the whole time by calling it Flame Walker.
That's true.
That was completely intentional.
Well,
we didn't actually think it was called a Flame Walker.
Of course. Of course.
All right, well, this match, we're not going to be seeing any Flame Wakers because it is
Or
Warlocks. Or Walkers. Either one.
Because those don't exist.
No. Warlock versus Hunter. Leadpaint actually is going to switch it up, so we'll see what type of Warlock Savjz is bringing. I actually can't really pin down anything for Savjz right now as far as Warlock goes.
Yeah, just generally, he prefers handlock or handlock variants. He just over throughout the history of StarCraft, or sorry, the history of Hearthstone. Wrong game. He's preferred that kind of deck, but he's been playing more Zoo lately, and as we can see now, it is going to be Zoo.
Yeah, when I talked to him earlier in the week, I asked him to tell me what he thought the strongest decks were right now, and Zoo was definitely at the one of the decks at the top of his list. So now Void Terror is a card that some players put in their Zoo Warlock decks and some players do not. It can be really inconsistent, especially if you're behind on board.
Yeah,
it can be a dead card in your hand for a long time. But sometimes it can make ridiculous combos early on with like Nerubian Eggs and Power Overwhelmings.
Yeah, it's just high risk, high reward.
Yeah,
and I think this is one of those. This is one of those games where it's going to be rewarded because he has the combo of Nerubian Egg plus Void Terror. He doesn't even have to Imp Gang Boss on turn 3. He has a better play than Imp Gang Boss on turn 3. Can you imagine that?
I didn't think that it was possible. And Leadpaint, of course, seems to be bringing mid-range Hunter here. Big Tell is not only the web spinner, which a lot of face hunters cut for cards that can deal a little bit more damage, have more damage potential, and also the Houndmaster.
Wow, that's an interesting one. Bane of Doom, I didn't think he was going to play that card.
My favorite card, Monk.
Yeah, but unfortunately, like, Savjz has kind of been being out-tempoed here, even though he got a lot of value out of that Void Caller. The Houndmaster can do a lot of work here, and so can Freezing Trap. Plus, the Eagle Horn Bow, in the future, it'll be able to get a lot of value.
Yeah. Leok is actually one of the best targets for Houndmaster, just because you're hiding your buffed creatures behind the Leok.
Yeah.
And
But,
also, it has the...
But do you see what I see? It's Bane of Doom
Oh,
time.
yeah! My favorite card in the game.
All right, let's summon
And
some...
right now, I'll show you exactly why. Because of Void Callers.
Well, that's really good.
Indeed.
So, like, I think out of the possible demons that the Bane of Doom can get, I think about, like, most of them are good and only, like, 5 or 6 of them are bad.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fair. Like, even if you get a Flame Imp, which is one of the worst ones, you're kind of okay with it, right?
Yeah, we don't really have a choice to be okay with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Dread Infernal, Floating Watcher, Doom Guard, even Succubus is okay.
Yeah, Succubus is perfectly fine. It's just the ones you don't want are like Mistress, Blood Imp, Flame Imp,
Blood Imp, yeah. I've had Blood Imp.
Felguard is actually really good as well.
Mm. That's true. It is. Because you don't have the drawback for it. Which is Destroy Mana Crystal.
Yeah.
Definitely not a good thing.
Well, this is certainly slightly unfortunate.
Yeah.
He has to use his weapon in here, and now some minions are going to be procced. So how much mana can Savjz get this Sea Giant to? I'm not really sure. So this is a Freezing Trap. Yeah, this is Freezing Trap. So it'll pretty much be 5 mana at the most. Unless he sapses or he chooses to attack with the Void Caller first. And I think you'd rather attack with the Imp Gang Boss to get it bounced back into your hand. Yeah, because that's just a lower value creature.
Yeah. But it's a tough decision. And also, Savjz is already at 14 health and actually has no way to build up a wall or, say, like a Mal'Ganis to be able to spawn from this Void Caller. So he's actually in a pretty rough spot at the moment. This is a really heavy Zoo Warlock deck with Sylvanas, Dr. Boom, Sea Giant, and probably Mal'Ganis.
Yeah, and now Leadpaint, he can kind of just go on the aggressive here and rely on his hero power to close out the game.
Yeah, even has Quick Shot for some direct damage and as a tool to be able to maybe refill his hand next turn if he finds a card that he can play along with it. So
yeah, not looking good for Savjz here. And yet again, there's no taunters. He needs that He needs that Defender Vargas here. He taps for it, but unfortunately that's not it.
Yeah, that is... should be game here.
Yeah, I think Savjz just attacked there just to...
just to check what trap it was,
yeah.
see if he's running 2 freezings.
Exactly, just to scout out for the next game. Or in future games, perhaps. Because again, this 100 deck is eliminated because Leadpaint won with it. But Savjz is going to have another chance with the Zoo.
Yeah. So, of course, Leadpaint does have Druid and his Zoo Warlock deck left. Savjz still has that Zoo and still has the Mage remaining. So, a little bit closer series than last time. Tied 1-1 at the moment.
Yeah. What I really like about Savjz is that he often brings decks that no one else will bring. He tries a lot of different things. For example, he was one of the first players to bring Light Bomb Priest to tournaments. He's the only player these days who brings a Bola Paladin to tournaments, and he's kind of like a mini Tides of Time in that way.
Yeah.
Tides of Time sometimes he just goes all over the place, crazy. Like
Mill Druid.
Lumber Mill Druid.
Yeah,
right?
the Lumber Mill.
Tides of Time has also brought Echo Giant Mage to tournaments before.
Yeah.
So in a way, those two players are very similar, and they're really nice players to cheer for if you're kind of bored of the mundane Hearthstone decks that everyone seems to play.
Yeah, when I was talking to Leadpaint earlier in the week, I asked him if he was confident, because making through the open bracket twice has to give you at least some confidence. And he said he's confident, but the only thing that he's worried about is getting too next leveled on meta decisions, is what he said. And Eboladin, the Paladin deck that Savjz is bringing, might be Leadpaint getting a little bit next leveled on his meta decisions. I'm not sure if he really expected him to bring that deck.
Well, I'm sure if he did his research, he would know that it is certainly a possibility.
It's a possibility, but there's so many decks that you have to sort of account for as being really strong right now.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a good thing about Savjz that you said, that it's just like, well, he can bring anything.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a read on it. But Warlock versus Warlock next. This is going to be Zoo
versus Zoo. And it's hard to even call them Zoo because we've seen both players. They're kind of more mid-rangey decks, right?
Yeah. Where does it end?
I don't know. Somewhere on the spectrum lies these two decks. And we saw Jiraxis. Well, we didn't see Jiraxis. We saw Mal'Ganis from Leadpaint. And we saw Void Callers from both players. And even Bane of Doom from Savjz. So this is not going to be a typical Zoo where it just kind of gets out of control in the early game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Zoo that possibly goes in the late game with big creatures fighting other big creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of in between the Demon Lock and the Zoo variant. But like you said, it's the line, where that line is drawn between Zoo and Demon Lock is very smudged. It's just somewhere on that spectrum, and they sort of meld together at a lot of points.
Yeah, I like Savjz's hand slightly better here. Just the Abusive Sergeants aren't that great early on. You do want one because... Okay, yeah, one comes back. You do want one because it's one of the best game-changing cards early on. But you really want a solid drop early on, like a Nerubian Egg, perhaps.
Yeah, I think Nerubian Egg is actually one of the key cards in this matchup because not only does it allow you to trade up into something strong, like if you get a Nerubian Egg out early and you can Abusive Sergeant into a Knife Juggler, that gives you so much board presence because you have a 4/4, and you basically just traded 2 for 1 in that situation.
Yeah,
it's
and actually,
really strong.
Both players are going to have that option, but I think Leadpaint's going to be able to abuse it more, just because he's going to be able to coin into a 2-drop.
If both players play Nerubian Egg on turn 2, it's sort of like a standoff.
Yeah.
Because you can't proc your Nerubian Egg into your opponent's Nerubian Egg.
Yeah, and now... Okay, I like this decision a lot because he has 2 Death Rattle Minions now to proc the Knife Juggler. But Savjz can counter with kind of the same play.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for him, though, this is he's going to be playing off curve. But fortunately for him, he has the Implosion in his hand, which is one of the key cards in this matchup. It's one of the only cards that allow you to get back on board from your hand. And also, just Zoo, typically, it doesn't have amazing ways to deal with the Imps if they spawn 3 or more.
Yeah. I like Sea Giant as well in the matchup, because you know when you're playing against another Zoo Warlock, the board's going to be pretty big a lot of the times. A lot of times you can play that for 2, maybe 3 mana on bigger boards.
Whoa, that should be pretty big. So he can Knife Juggler, double Abusive Sergeant.
Could be slightly risky with putting Knife Juggler on the board and spawning lots of creatures with against an Imp Gang boss. But it does seem like it is going to be his best option here because he can clear it off the board. As long as the juggles... He does have the potential to get really bad juggles here.
I think you can even consider actually just double abusiving and then knife juggler.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see where these knives land. So he doesn't want these knives to hit the... Okay, that's good.
Really good.
Oh, wow.
That's near... I think that's perfect juggles for that situation.
Definitely. You might want to hit... Okay, wow, that's actually really good as well. Those are actually the best juggles possible.
Yeah, because now you can't trade into your opponent's Haunted Creeper and still have your Haunted Creeper survive. Yeah, but I mean, this isn't the worst turn for Leadpaint either, because he has his own Abusive Sergeant to proc his egg. He also has Knife Juggler, so he'll get 2 juggles from the Haunted Creeper, plus 1 juggle from the Abusive Sergeant, plus 1 juggle from the Nerubian egg, or the Nerubian when it spawns from the actual egg.
Yeah, pretty good, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just going to be the battle of the Knife Jugglers.
Yeah, so he can trade up into Knife Juggler and then trade up into the Nerubian with his own Power Overwhelming. Both these players are getting good juggles, so neither of them, I guess the one on the Nerubian was sort of inconsequential, but I don't think either player can be really upset with their juggles here.
Oh! Well, that was good.
Well, Implosion into... Well, actually, he has to roll high here if he wants to be able to play the Sea Giant, because it's taking a creature off the board. So he's got to roll, I think, a 3 or higher here.
Oh, well,
yeah.
That's certainly 3 or higher.
Yeah.
And you get a free Sea Giant, you get the Power Overwhelming, and this is actually what makes Zoo really interesting these days, these back and forth games. Actually, probably not typical of Zoo, because like this was a game where like it was very standoffish, Nubian Egg and Haunted Creeper coming down, which just sets up for bigger plays, even though it's not as strong early on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah. The tough thing is that Sea Giant is so hard to deal with. I mean, luckily, Leadpaint does have an Implosion, but if this Implosion rolls 2, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
Lots of trouble. Let's see. Okay.
That's fair. But still, you've got the problem is you've got an Imp Gang boss on the other side of the field as well.
Yeah.
And Melganis. There's so many demons now on the board.
Oh, Bane of Doom.
Yeah, let's see
What's
what
in
it
the
is.
box? Oh!
Oh, man.
That is disgusting.
Yeah, so double Melganis. Of course, it's always going to spell Melganis. Just like how Animal Companion always gets Huffer.
I agree to you. You can see Leadpaint is even smiling. He's knowing, okay, yeah. Fair enough. That's going to be it. Wow. That is why Bane of Doom is my favorite card. And Savjz knows as well. He's thinking, yeah. I got a Melganis.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to get a Melganis sometime in this tournament, it might not be there, but I think he'll take it. Yeah. He was in a pretty dominant position even with that because of the Implosion into Sea Giant play.
Yeah.
But you can't ever be unhappy about Melganis, right?
No, but there goes his Bane of Doom RNG for the rest of the tournament. So I think he might have cashed in a little bit too early. But that is going to give him a 2-1 lead in the series. The only deck that Savjz still has to win with is the Mage, which we have yet to see.
Yeah, is it going to be Freeze Mage like pretty much everyone else is bringing, or is it going to be something that uses a new card, Flame Waker?
Flame Waker.
It's going to wake some flames.
Yeah. Huh. Is it waking the flames, or does it have a wake of flames behind it?
It's a good question. Now, are you familiar with WoW lore to answer that question?
Nope.
Okay, neither am I. So we're going to leave that to the viewers.
I thought I was familiar with WoW lore, but then you meet people who are just ridiculous at WoW lore, and they just make you feel so small and insignificant in the world. When someone out WoW lores you, you just feel like it's the worst feeling in the world, man.
Well, the next match is going to be Jaina versus Gul'dan. A bit of WoW lore there.
Yeah, great job, Monk.
Yeah, so if it's going to be a Freeze Mage that Savjz is bringing, it's going to be really good against the Zoo, but it's actually going to be pretty terrible against Calby's lineup because he attacked his lineup against Freeze Mage. But if it's Tempo Mage, then it's going to be slightly worse against the Zoo, but slightly better against Calby's lineup. So
yeah.
Maybe if I were in Savjz's position, I might hope that I submitted Tempo Mage. Oh, there it is. Well, it's going to be some kind of mech mage. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Mech Mage can fit Flame Wakers in, especially with spare parts. It has a lot of synergy with spare parts.
Oh, it's true as well.
I was theory crafting or trying out some Mech Mage decks and trying to figure out what I could cut to put Flamewalker in and try and maximize my potential for spare parts with Clockwork Gnomes, Tinker Talent Technicians, and Mechanical Yetis. And it worked out pretty well. But Zoo was a tough matchup.
Yeah, certainly. Typically, I feel like Zoo is really favored in this matchup because they can trade up a bit more. But the problem is with Leadpaint Zoo, it seems like a more high-end curving Zoo. So you're more likely to have things like stuck in your hand, like Doom Guards or Mal'Ganises.
Yeah.
But yeah, great top deck from Leadpaint. That's gonna certainly get him back into the game.
This is one of the ways that Mech Mages can win this matchup, is by having a decent early curve and then drawing into their burn early enough to be able to finish the game when they know that the Warlock is going to be tapping. But you can't lose overwhelming board control early.
Yeah, that was, want to point out, that was a really interesting play from Savjz. He actually preemptively popped the block so that Abusive Sergeant wouldn't get extra value.
Which is not a play that a lot of players think about, but a lot of times it ends up being correct.
Well, here's the key Mech Warper.
Ooh, Mech Warper, coin into Spider Tank.
Yeah,
He's nearly guaranteed to have a mech next turn for Goblin Blast Mage.
Yeah, it's good, but I feel like Leadpaint can somehow still deal with it because of his Abusive Sergeant. His Abusive Sergeant also of his Void Terror in his hand.
Oh!
That's going to be great.
Yeah, Void Color as well. The one thing, though, is that he wants to use the Void Terror before he plays the Void Collar. A lot of times it can feel really great to play Void Collar on turn 4, but this is obviously the better play, if only because if he pulls Void Terror instead of Doomguard with Void Collar, he's losing so much value from his hand.
Yeah, very true. And now Zoo like really swings back in a fairly dominating lead. Savjz can deal with this with a Fireball, but if he does that, he's kind of somewhat even on board, maybe slightly ahead, and that's not in a position where you want to be after you've given up your turn. Now it's up to Leadpaint to make the following play, and he's actually going to be in a lot of trouble because again, turn 5, Bane of Doom.
I smell a Bane of Doom. That's going to be 3 Bane of Dooms that we've seen already in this series. We've seen a Mal'Ganis. What did we see before that?
We saw not a very high level
Oh,
card.
Void Collar.
Void Collar. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
All right,
here we
what's gonna
go.
be here?
Oh!
So he's definitely winning the RNG battles there, and he's even going to have Goblin Blast Mage to follow up on turn 5.
Savjz is definitely a more skilled Bane of Doom user.
Oh, but that wasn't as skilled.
Worst, yeah. Basically, those, aside from the couple damage to face, that Goblin Blast Mage was just completely inconsequential because that 2 damage to the Void Terror was effectively useless.
Just getting all the demons out of his hand as possible.
Yeah, I think Leadpaint's in actually a pretty good spot. He's got Dr. Boom next turn, plus he can trade in his Void Collar if need be to almost guaranteed pull a Doomguard out of his hand, unless of course he draws into another demon his following turn.
Yeah, it's just Leadpaint has the bigger deck, and he has board control, so pretty much there's in no universe or in no category is Savjz winning.
Yeah.
I guess he has more cards in his hand, but even that. And he has more HP.
Yeah, that's true. Uh-oh. Well, that can be annoying. I mean, I guess Flame Imp isn't the worst card to pull from Void Collar because you don't have the drawback of taking 3 damage. But it should be protected for 1 more turn.
Yeah, I don't think you care about taking 3 damage at this point when you're at 28 HP against a Mech Mage player.
Yeah. And this is one of the downfalls of Mech Mages, is that sometimes you just run out of cards. He's got spare parts, but when you have to put 5 damage into a Void Walker...
And even 6 more damage into Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's playing the control game in this matchup. And it's just really unfortunate because you can't win this way against Zoo, who has a hero power of just like being able to tap every single turn.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge power play here. I mean, he wouldn't even need to trade in the Void Collar just because he could empty his hand anyway. But
well, he can also just kill off this Lothep with one Boombot.
yeah, that's true. And he can also fit in a tap if he pulls it. So it's obviously the better play, but it's interesting to see that he really didn't need to. Implosion also, fantastic card. Leadpaint sitting in a really great spot.
That Mad Scientist, or rather Mirror Entity, is a bit late. So he's just going to play all his minions and hope for the best. Maybe, I don't know. You can even, like, there's just no combination of cards that I can see Savjz winning with here. Even if he top decks Archmage and Tinnitus, there's just, I feel, too much damage on the board.
Yeah. A PSA to players out there playing Zoo Warlock. Do not implosion into a Divine Shield.
Yep. Leadpaint's not going to make that mistake. Takes off the Divine Shield first.
Because it does no damage.
And you spawn
and
0
thus
imps.
Spawns 0 imps. I mean, if you absolutely need to take off a Divine Shield and Implosion is the only way that you can do it to set up a lethal, maybe. But that's it. Unforgivable.
Savjz going for the very obvious Doomsayer play. Perhaps he's hoping for Explosive Sheep, Unstable Ghoul.
Cut one.
Oh, he's going to hide his Nat Pagel. It's like, you may take me, but you'll never take Pagel.
All right. Well, with that, he is going to concede. And this series is tied up 2-2. We are going to go to a game number 5.
Yeah, game number 5. But I believe the last deck for Leadpaint is Druid. Is that correct?
It is.
And that's going to be really favorable for Savjz. Mech Mage versus Druid is probably, for Mech Mage, the best matchup that they can possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually curious because Zoo has come back into the field and because Freeze Mage is becoming really popular, Mech Mage has died down a bit. So Druid has gotten better, even though Zoo is getting back in the field, because Mech Mage is typically a better matchup against Druid than Zoo is a good matchup against Druid.
Yeah, this lineup from Savjz seems like it's not to counter Druid, but all 3 decks have favorable matchups against Druid, it seems.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, if Savjz wins this next match, his next opponent, Calby, will also have Druid in his lineup.
It was all a plan from the beginning. Savjz on his on the Liquid Power rankings for this week actually put mid-range Druid as what he perceives as the best deck, I think.
Oh,
so he knew that the other players were going to look at that list, think that he's going to play Druid themselves, and then he goes ahead and picks 3 decks that counter Druid. Genius move.
That's so meta on so many levels.
So meta. Leadpaint worried about getting too next leveled on the meta, and Savjz is as next level as it gets.
Yep. Just using those rankings to his advantage rather than revealing too much information, right?
Using his own community influence to win tournaments. Crazy. What a smart man. What a smart Finnish man.
So the opening hands, let's see them. Oh, Toshly?
Toshly.
Okay, what that tells me is that there probably is Flame
Wakers.
Waker in the deck because you pretty much run that card to draw spare parts, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have seen Mech Mages in the past put spare parts in because it gives you more reliability with Archmage and Tinnitus also. But I feel like, I mean, Mech Mage does have some room to cut things. There's so many, even though Mech Mage has a lot of the same core cards, there's a lot of cuts that you can make and a lot of small additions that you can make. Like Tinkertown Technicians or Harvest Golems or Spider Tanks, the 3 slot and the 4 slot, especially with Mechanical Yetis also. There's a lot of choices that you can make, so I think you could find some place for Flamewakers in that deck because it seems like it'd be really strong.
Oh, what a great draw. If Savjz hadn't top decked that, it'd be a pretty sad next few turns.
Yeah.
Like just putting on a Neutron in the field, it's not much pressure. Fortunately, like there's actually a lot of good possibilities for Leadpaint. He has a swipe into Keeper, into Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, he's in great spot. Savjz needs something that he can play. Wow, that's really good actually.
Okay, Cloakfield as well. So I'm still winning those Flamewakers.
Yep. To be honest, don't know if you're going to get to see him. But we've been through a lot of cards in this deck. Maybe about 15 last game.
Okay, not the best, but I think Savjz will take it.
Yeah. I mean, he's still in a pretty decent spot. He's got Toshly default for the next turn to answer into whatever Leadpaint's going to play.
Oh, wow, this is going to be interesting. Actually, Savjz Roar.
And Wild Growth, so he can set up a next turn Dr. Boom.
Okay, I like it.
I like that.
Yeah, if he didn't do that and he Sled Belchered instead, it would have gotten answered by the Toshli. Whereas if he plays Dr. Boom the next turn, Dr. Boom contests Toshli really well.
Yeah. And just opening up that mana so he has more opportunities in the future as well. Toshli.
Yeah, even though Dr. Boom is a great play, the problem is it's probably not really a defensive play, which means this Toshli will be able to get 5 damage in. Mad Scientist possibly will be able to get some damage in. Oh, switching the attack and the health of Toshli. Now that's interesting.
He's trying to think if that's a better play than just Fireball pinging it. If he switches the health, he gets to develop the Powder Treader also. But if he fireballs and pings it,
yeah,
then he can start pushing in for maybe...
Okay, so that was actually really good for Savjz. He wanted the Mad Scientist to die.
Yeah.
And with that play, he means he's not going to do the reversing switch play because there's a possibility for the Boombot to hit Toshli.
Yeah.
And for Toshli to go actually under 7 HP, which means he wouldn't have the necessary 7 attack after reversing switch to kill off Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
And I would say, yet again, this is a pretty dominating position for Savjz.
Yeah, he might have to just Force of Nature here. But then you risk, what if that's Counterspell? Some mech mages do run Counterspell. So it looks like he's just going to play Sludge Belcher. This is a safer play because you can check for Mirror Entity with the Shade of Naxxramas. And his Shade of Naxxramas will actually be more valuable because he can buff it up with Savjz Roar.
So not quite enough here, but Savjz again, he'll be able to go into a pretty dominating position. I don't see any way for Leadpaint to do so much. Leadpaint does have combo in the next turn, but Savjz probably isn't too worried because he's sitting at a pretty safe 28 health.
Well, combo next turn actually is a pretty big deal because it can be used to clear the board. Also scary though. Oh, the finicky Cloak Field is going to be pretty huge actually.
Yeah, so if he Cloak Fields this Toshli, even if Leadpaint goes for the combo, then it's pretty much lethal no matter what, unless he has to pretty much play the Ancient of Lore. But if he plays the Ancient of Lore to heal, then he gives his opponent an Ancient of Lore.
Or get a really good bomb.
Alright, I'm looking forward to this bomb.
Alright, this is going to have to be the best bomb of his life. I think he'd clear off the shade just to...
Oh, even more cloaked minions.
Yeah, it looks like that is going to be it.
Yeah, so that's
wow.
That's 8 damage on board. Even without this Fireball, it would be in a pretty dangerous position. But I think Savjz is going to be pretty happy. Fireball to the face, and that's going to be it. Savjz takes this series 3-2. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see any Flame Wakers, even though it seemed like because of Toshli, Flame Wakers would have been a possibility.
Yeah, and we've still only been through like 15 cards in the deck each game, so there still is a possibility that Flame Wakers could be in that deck. But again, congratulations to Savjz. He will move on to face Kabi in the winners match, which I think will be happening next. Leadpaint will move down to the losers, or actually the losers match is going to be next. So that losers match is going to be Leadpaint versus Ostkaka. The loser of that one is actually out of the tournament, so there's a lot on the line for those players.
Yeah, and after that we'll have Savjz versus Kalbi, and I think that's going to be a match that favors Savjz because he does seem to be bringing a fairly anti-Druid lineup.
Yes.
So 2 great matches coming up right after this.
Indeed. And we also want to give you a quick reminder about the Redemption Tournament that will be happening in May, in the middle of May. Basically what the Redemption Tournament is all the players who participate in a Legendary Series match day who do not win will get a second chance to qualify for that LAN final. Those 28 players will be put into 4 separate 7-player brackets, and the winner of each of those brackets will join the 4 players who won each Legendary Series match week. That's a total of 8 plus 8 from the last chance qualifier. That makes up 16. That LAN final is going to be Pretty intense, and of course, best of 5 conquest format as always. But like we said, guys, next match is going to be the losers match of Group A. Is going to be between Leadpaint and Ostkaka. Don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone Legendary Series action right after this.